Meet the publisher, Mr. Morrison. You can put your name and place of mine in the title if you have ever wanted to be a published author. Would you like a market for your work and be in total control of what is published and in what format? What I'm about to tell you, please don't misconstrue. I'm not trying to brag or make myself sound so way important. I have, though, published over the years some 200 freelance articles, and I worked as an assistant editor on a weekly paper and as a sports editor on a daily. And I had one book published too, and I don't mean where I had to lay down the money to have it published, but rather the publisher paid me. I have to be honest with you, I loved being published. I really loved seeing my name in print, but what I really didn't like are pieces that I wrote that deserved to see print are the ones which were often overlooked and rejected. Well, I found a way. Actually, a number of ways. This was back in 1991, so a lot of the technology you have today was not available back then. But I think you could apply what I did with the technology today and have an even better product. So I decided to buy a photocopier and begin publishing myself. A very dear person who lived in Harrisville was doing this, and her name is Doris Gauthier. And she was doing this and had published quite a few history booklets herself, and had a limited market, though, for them. So I wanted to be able to do this and have a larger market. I found that the Northeastern Shopper in Tawas, Michigan, was selling their big office copier for, I'm thinking it was like around $400 or $500. It was a tough sell because my now ex-wife tried to deter everything I wanted to do, but I refused to let her or anyone else stop me on this. So she and I drove down to Tawas, where we picked up the copier. It was large and very heavy, but I actually loved that machine. To me, it was magical, really, truly magical. Now, my next move was to run up to Alpena and buy on an extra toner cartridge, which was on an additional $125. And I had to make it work, or she would have never let me live it down. On the way back from Alpena, two names came to mind for my business, but of course I only needed one. There was Importers of the Past or Treasure Cove Publications, and I selected Treasure Cove, and my publishing firm was established or born. My plan was to make two different booklets to begin with, and to take them out to market them myself. I selected two articles that I had written and had been published. I did everything, and it was an experience that I'll never forget. I set the type, I laid out the pages, and ultimately printed the booklet on the copier. And I went out on a limb and printed out 100 copies of each. The first was Old Veneta Creek, a late woodland village in Oscoda, Michigan. And the second was From Mud Lake to the Yukon, which had originally been written by Ruth Van Buskirk, with her additions to the text by me. She wrote it when she was in the Yukon during the Great Gold Rush, her and her husband. Well, the next step was to market them, and I found that really quite easy to do. In Oscoda, there was a bookstore named Readmore Bookstore, and they took 25 copies priced at $2.75 each, of which they would keep 15%. From there, I drove out to Footsite, about 5 or 6 miles outside of Oscoda, and there was a very busy party store there named the Dam Store, and they took 25, and again, at 15% return to them. And then it was north to Harrisville, where another 25 copies of each were left at the craft maker's cabin. And I was surprised how welcome the booklets were received, and the places that received them. Sales at these plus one would let me know if they were going to sell at all. So at Ossineek, there was a craft store that took 10 of each booklet. And finally, I went to the Jesse Besser Museum in Alpena. They had a very nice gift shop, and they took the last 15 copies of each. I find myself having wished I would have made a larger initial run, and I decided to do more and go back out to other areas. And my plan was to check weekly on sales, and I would then be able to take additional copies out when I did that. So I did 200 copies of each to take out the next time, and they were all placed in Lincoln, Curtisville, and Hale. There were other places, but I cannot remember where they were now. It's been quite some time ago. And oh yeah, the Indian Museum and Gift Store south of Tawas I think they took 50 right there themselves. Readmore was sold out, so I collected and left more. And these 2 booklets sold very well. I want to tell you I was extremely excited about the initial success. I was. And during the first year, I expanded my line of booklets and had, I think, 10 different titles out. And I really expanded the areas into which the booklets were being sold. I did a run to Rogers City, Mackinac City, St. Ignace, to several Indian shops there, as well as the casino. Then there was Sault Ste. Marie. And in the first year, I had a total of 10 different titles out. The second year of Treasure Cove publications, I expanded things even more, and it seems whatever I put out was sold. By the end of the second year, I had close to 20 different titles in my line of booklets, which were all written by me, and 2 additional titles that were written by my dear friend Jerry Wagner. In the second year, I also published 2 different VHS videos. One of them was a tour featuring a look at the thousands of artifacts that I had dug in only 4 years. And I continued expanding, and it was, as I said, all selling very, very well indeed. And I began a monthly publication then called the Sunrise Side Historical Bulletin, to which my best friend, Jerry Wagner, contributed some really awesome articles. And then I began a pet project, a quarterly newsletter called the Iosco County Archaeologist. I had about 100 subscribers for year 1 and 150 the next year. Starting that newsletter is something I will never ever forget. I took subscription ads in 3 or 4 local publications as well as a couple national publications, but the main way I got subscribers was by going door to door. My son Dennis, who was quite young at the time, went door to door with me in Oscoda, and we covered a huge area, and he was quite the little helper back then. And I think a lot of these subscriptions came because of how cute the little guy was. So Treasure Cove Publications got a name change to Treasure Cove Productions because I added videos and audio recordings and such. And over the years, I made changes, and it became known as now Time Hopper Productions and also Charlie Cat Productions. Of course, I was still doing freelance on the side. I traded articles for ad space in several magazines with large circulations. These included Gary Fogelman's Indian Artifacts magazine and then Ancient Artifacts Quarterly. And when eBay came into focus on the internet, I began selling them there, and this established not just a market nationwide, but really worldwide. And I personally detest eBay, but the booklets, DVDs, and CDs that I sold did really well on there, and I began publishing things beyond the scope of regional interest. Now I no longer publish on paper, nor do I issue recordings. Everything I do now is aimed at the viewers here on YouTube. Whatever came out of that magical copy, what became of it, well, it had paid for itself many, many times over, but I had literally worn it out. And I buried it in the backyard of the home I owned at Greenbush, Michigan. It is difficult for me to recall how I got my material printed after that, but I just simply do not remember. Later on, I did it with a copy or a printer from my computer. And while I was doing this publishing, I had many other enterprises going, and oftentimes my sales trips were combined peddling my publications as well as my primitive artworks. I sold the artwork wholesale across mid-Michigan and into the Upper Peninsula. And I remember one day in particular, I started out very, very early. I had our full-size Dodge van literally packed from the floor to the top with items to sell. And sell I did. I came home with the van nearly empty, but with over $3,000 in my pocket. That was an awesome day, and it wasn't unusual to do that. Well, there's been another name change, as I told you, this time Charlie Cat Productions, after my best little buddy Charlie. And it has been both profitable and rewarding. There are many tales I could share with you about my publishing, but I will perhaps bring those to you another time. While you're here, please, why don't you take a half a second to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the new programs that will be coming up right here on the Dennis Morrison channel. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and hopefully maybe it's been a help to you, and perhaps you'll be able to begin publishing material of your own. All right, thanks. Have a great day, and God bless.